How do we make the world a better place? We need to look to the future, to search for sound solutions, to create sustainable practices, to embrace emerging energy. Ever wonder what the future of energy will be? With optimism, the Department of Energy finds ways to transition to cleaner and sustainable energy sources. Let's talk about other possible sources of energy today. I'm your host, Antoinette Toss, and welcome to Emerging Energy, a program that focuses on the energy sector and the impact of conserving energy for a better future for all. The Philippines relies on fossil fuels for its supply of energy. But with the depleting resources, the Department of Energy has come up with policies and initiatives to push for alternative sources of energy. To talk more about alternative energy sources and the future of energy, we are joined by none other than our resident expert, the brilliant DOE's Energy Utilization Management Bureau Director, Patrick Aquino. Hello, Director Patrick.
Hi, Tony. It's nice to be back.
Let's talk about the future of energy. So we know that hydrogen, nuclear, and alternative fuels are alternative energy sources. Now, can you provide us with some brief background on hydrogen, nuclear, and alternative fuels?
Well, let's do a little science lesson.
Yes.
Hydrogen is a basic element. It's the most abundant element in the universe. And it's also a base element because a lot of the other derivatives, let's say water, requires a hydrogen molecule. So the Department of Energy is looking at hydrogen as a potential fuel for the future. It's also energy dense, meaning if you're able to harness it, you're able to get a lot more energy out of it by using a smaller amount. Essentially, hydrogen is a very versatile fuel if we're able to harness it. And it's also dubbed as a next generation fuel internationally, globally. And the best thing about hydrogen is that it is zero emission. Now, when we talk about nuclear energy, the energy is derived from nuclear fission, wherein the atom of an element is split. And the basic element that we're using for nuclear energy are plutonium and uranium. But it's a misnomer that nuclear energy per se is harnessed immediately from the splitting of the atom. What we harness is the energy release or the heat, wherein the heat boils, for example, and it's again the turbines that generate the power for us. Now, for alternative fuels, there are two things that we talk about. There's one, we call them biofuels, wherein we use organic residue as feedstock, we combine it, and then we use it the same as a fuel like gasoline or diesel, and we blend it. So it's lesser emission because you're not just burning fossil fuels. You get a renewable energy component into it. But the other aspect of an alternative fuel is what we call the synthetic fuels or the e-fuels, wherein there's a chemical reaction. This is when you talk about ammonia, ethanol, wherein you use, let's say, hydrogen and you pair it and you split it, and the chemical reactions generate the fuels that we use. So the GHG generated from the alternative fuels, whether it's biofuels or e-fuels, is lesser than when we burn conventional fuels like gasoline or diesel.
Can you share with us how we can compare hydrogen energy with other renewable sources of energy?
Well, hydrogen is that if we're able to harness it, you don't have to generate it per se. You can get it from the air. But the most important thing about hydrogen is that we're able to store it and utilize it. There are existing technologies that we have, for example, fuel cell. But in terms of generating hydrogen, there are varying colors, for example. What we are preferring is green hydrogen, meaning hydrogen generated from renewable energy sources. It's usually through solar, wind, and then the hydrogen generated is stored. And during the times that the renewable energy is not being generated, you get to combust or use the hydrogen to fuel your power generation. Incidentally, hydrogen in terms of fuel cells also help us to use it for public transportation or transport sector. So it's really a promising technology, but we're still not yet at a stage here locally that it's commercially available. There's still a price barrier. That's why you've seen the Department of Energy partner with our private stakeholders and the academe, as well as the Science and Technology Department, to bring in more research and development for the localized application of hydrogen in the country.
And for nuclear energy, why should we venture into nuclear power? What would you say are the benefits or disadvantages? And of course, the big question on everyone's mind is it safe?
Nuclear energy produces also zero emission, meaning once the process of nuclear fission has started, there is no emission to speak of. You will not require carbon capture, for example. There's no CO2 emissions coming from the nuclear power plant. And in terms of the energy density again, the stability, a nuclear energy power plant, when it starts running, it continuously operates. That's an advantage as compared to, let's say, renewable energy, wherein there's the intermittency factor. The proposition of the government in nuclear energy is simple. We're not making it a choice that RE versus nuclear. What we're saying is that it can operate both. It complements us because at the times when renewable energy is intermittent, we'll have a stable, zero-emission energy source to power our development. But the biggest elephant when we talk about nuclear energy is on the safety. And we've made significant strides internationally in terms of safety. We are aware of what happened in Long Mile Island in the United States, Fukushima, and Chernobyl. But each of those served as a lesson. That's why the plants, the nuclear power plants in operation now, have adapted and adjusted to allay all of those concerns. But let me end by saying when it comes to nuclear that it's a choice that the Filipino people will have to make. We follow what's in the International Atomic Energy Agency regulations. We get the public support. We get the locality support. Everybody would have to be on board. So we'll get that support by making the information available. And this is why for our kababayans, if they have questions on nuclear, the government is here. Your DOE is here. Your Science and Technology Department is here to allay all of your concerns. Let's start having that conversation. Because nuclear energy is a zero emission, a sustainable solution that should be part of our energy transition.
Up next, we'll dig deeper on the policies of the Department of Energy on hydrogen, nuclear, and alternative fuels.
How do you know that it is safe enough? We follow the international standards. We will not be allowed to acquire technology if we don't have the standards in place.
You're still watching Emerging Energy. We're talking about alternative sources of energy, but we all know that concepts are nothing without the policies that will help the country transition to these cleaner, renewable, and sustainable sources of energy. To talk more about that, we are honored to be joined by Energy Undersecretary Sharon Garin and, of course, our resident expert DOE's Energy Utilization Management Bureau Director, Patrick Aquino. Director Patrick, thank you so much once again. And USEC Sharon, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Director Patrick, what are the Department of Energy's current policies in developing a hydrogen economy for the Philippines? And I know this is a topic that you explained earlier as well.
Well, in 2020, under the previous administration, they established the Hydrogen Fusion Energy Committee. What they recommended is that there are power and non-power applications as well as transport applications for hydrogen and its related technologies. And what the DOE is doing right now is that there's this integration being done on our Philippine Energy Plan in the upcoming update. And we're viewing that hydrogen, along with nuclear, is part of the alternative energy sources that will power us through the next decade. Our focus specifically for hydrogen is on research and development. We just recently inaugurated, along with the Department of Science and Technology, a fuel cell research center wherein we'll be exploring the domestic applications of a membrane, cell membrane, using domestic or organic materials from the country to power our fuel cells.
And speaking of nuclear energy, USEC Sharon, What is the government's plan for the future of nuclear energy, and are we taking steps into venturing into nuclear power? And what policies do we have right now?
No less than the President of the Philippines, President Marcos, during his last SONA, and also Secretary Lutilla, has mentioned reviving the use of the technology. But you have to understand, Tony, we have to go with it with prudence, and we have to be very stringent on what we do, because we don't want what happened to other countries, the accidents that happened. We have learned from that, and we have to make sure that we don't do what they have done. So now we're taking baby steps to make sure that if we do use nuclear energy, we have to have the regulations in place and the plans in place. And the second one would be the roadmap. What do we want? What's the role of nuclear energy in the energy mix?
Now, how is the government addressing specifically the safety concerns and ensuring proper regulatory measures for the development of nuclear energy in the Philippines?
Okay, so how do you know that it is safe enough? We follow the international standards. We will not be allowed to acquire technology if we don't have the standards in place. Well, we do siting on where you can put the nuclear energy plant, or in siting also where you can dispose. If you ask me what kind of technology is the best, and that is something that we have to have a regulatory framework that is solid and with so much integrity and independence. We are laying the groundwork or the foundations of a safe nuclear energy in the Philippines. We want to make sure that we are ready. I know that everybody's excited. All the companies are talking to other companies that are supplying the technology. But despite the excitement, DOE wants to remind that we are agnostic as to which country you get your technology, but we have to make sure that whatever technology from whichever country, our people are safe when we put it there.
Is there a timeline for people to anticipate and look forward to when it comes to this?
You know, Tony, this is not a short-term plan. Just to assess, it takes 5 years minimum. And then to construct, these are not ordinary construction. So it takes another 5 years minimum. So 10 years would be a very conservative estimate. But what we want to do is to make sure that when the technology comes and the interest comes and the investment comes, the Philippines is ready and we have all our regulations in place, and that is what we are doing. I know there are risks, huge risks for nuclear technology, but the benefits are even greater. If we do it right, this is what I like about hydrogen and all this technology. If we do it right, we can have a perfect mix for the Philippine energy, and we can assure the people that no more yellow alerts and red alerts or any other alert, because once we have nuclear energy mixed with renewable, with other technologies, even with natural gas, then we can have what they call energy security. And nuclear is one that you can rely on. It's not renewable, but it's green technology, it's clean technology.
Director Patrick, we would also like to ask you again about alternative fuels. As mentioned earlier, what are the latest developments in the utilization of other sources of energy in our country, and are there current policies in place for this as well?
We've talked about hydrogen, that we've included it in the mix. We've talked about our greater push for biofuels. So we're looking and exploring at all of these things towards our energy transition journey. We have to make sure that the domestic sources are available. We have to make sure that it's applicable in our context. And we're working, of course, with our private stakeholders. And let me just highlight, under the leadership of President Marcos and Secretary Lutilla, they've made great strides in removing the red tape and the bottleneck. More importantly, when the President Marcos and Secretary Lutilla, they saw the potential of our offshore wind, the necessary executive order was issued wherein all of government is being mustered to support the necessary investment needed. So that's what you can expect, the same level of commitment in making the energy sector more investment ready and, more importantly, ready to be clean and green.
Up next, let's talk more about the applications and initiatives of the Department of Energy on hydrogen, nuclear, and alternative fuels.
We have such good scientists, researchers, and that is a talent that I think can bring alternative energy here.
Your government and private sector is working to have the necessary technologies in place to meet our demand, to use our energy more efficiently, because energy efficiency starts with each of us.
It's going to be a difficult journey, but if everybody works together, then we'll be able to get through this quite successfully.
You're still watching Emerging Energy. Now, did you know that throughout the years, the government has utilized alternative sources of energy in some parts of the country? For this topic, we are joined by Mr. Felino Bernardo, Chief Operating Officer for Thermal Power Generation Group of Aboitiz Power Corporation. Still with us is DOE USEC Sharon Garin and our resident expert, DOE's Energy Utilization Management Bureau Director Patrick Aquino. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, Mr. Felino.
Thank you for having me.
For Director Patrick, we are going to go straight to asking you, given the various pathways and colors of hydrogen production, now will the DOE consider only those from renewable energy?
Well, as mentioned by USEC Sharon earlier, we're technology agnostic, but our goal is to have a reliable and secure supply of energy. But if there's a preference, I can cite you legislation already. In terms of hydrogen, of course, we'd like to see more green hydrogen because we have the Renewable Energy Act championing it. So the direction is to bring that in. But we're also not closing the door on other derivatives, let's say blue hydrogen, wherein you're using natural gas. Because we've also said in issuances that natural gas is a transition fuel. Ultimately, what we're envisioning is to bring down the emissions towards the net zero emission goal, and we have to deploy all available technologies. But what's very clear to us is that the business as usual could not remain the same. We have to do all of these technologies to bring down our emission levels.
Mr. Bernardo, could you provide us with an overview of Aboitiz Power Corporation's involvement in pursuing hydrogen power to be available in the country?
Hydrogen is a very important fuel source. So it's actually an energy carrier. But we believe that ammonia is a more effective carrier to transport hydrogen because of the existing infrastructure. So that's the good news, right? So testing is already being done in Japan. But again, we're looking at it because at some point in time with innovation and technology development, we're hoping that the prices will come down. And at that time, we'll be able to use it.
And for USEC Garin, are there any other initiatives that the government is implementing or pursuing when it comes to nuclear power plants?
We are currently reviewing all our bilateral agreements because our private sector cannot access the technology of the other countries if we don't comply with international agreements or standards. So we have currently on the table bilateral agreements with Canada, Korea, Russia even, China also, US with their 123 agreement, and so many other countries. So currently it is the Department of Foreign Affairs that is handling the primary agency for all those bilateral agreements. And we are mere technical support. You know, what's important about nuclear energy is education as well as acceptance of the people. Back in 2019, we had a survey and the result was 70%.
That's right.
70% acceptance of the Filipino people on nuclear energy. So we have decided that since this is at the forefront of the energy industry or the industry right now, we decided to have another survey, a more in-depth survey, to check the pulse of the people on how they feel about nuclear energy. At the same time, we hope to beef up our campaign on educating the people about nuclear energy, starting from students up to professionals, whether it's mass media or social media or any way that we can do a caravan in order for people to know more about nuclear technology, and they can learn and they can decide if they want it in their town or in their province or if they do not want it. So that's for the people to decide.
Before we go, let's play the emoji game. We have our paddleboards here, of course, once again. We have happy, angry, sad, neutral, and of course, all you have to do is react using these paddleboards about the statements that we will mention. How confident are you with the use of natural gas? Happy, happy, happy. Yusek Sharon, your response to why you are happy about this.
Natural gas is shifting from brown technology energy to green or clean, less brown actually. We will have cleaner energy with natural gas.
We believe that natural gas or LNG is the bridge technology
Transition.
towards decarbonization. Let me call it decarbonization.
Next question, paddleboards, ready? How satisfied are you with the current mix of renewable energy in the Philippines? The current mix.
Teka.
Ayan, napaisip na, hindi na yata basta ha. Okay, neutral. For Director Patrick. Neutral, si Yusek Sharon.
Makasad pa siya.
And Mr. Bernardo is also neutral.
Pwede kasing ganyan yan.
Pwede rin kasi ganito siya eh.
Oh my gosh. O sige. Why kanina neutral tas naging sad?
I'm sad because there's still a lot of things that we still need to do to get renewable energy at the scale and at the pace wherein private sector is coming in.
Okay.
So, government has some regulatory items that they need to address. We have constraints as to our transmission. And then there are other bottlenecks. So our people are not yet fully utilizing RE, and maybe this signifies that we need to work harder so that we'll end up here.
With another happy face like earlier. And that is it for our emoji game. Thank you so much for participating and playing, and we hope that you enjoyed while also learning. And with that, we'd like to ask you to share your final message to our viewers.
That's the first thing that we can do as a country, efficiency, as a group of people, group of individuals. Make sure that we use our energy resources efficiently and smartly. It's going to be a difficult journey, but if everybody works together, then we'll be able to get through this quite successfully.
Director Patrick.
Well, the message from our end is your government and the private sector is working to have the necessary technologies in place to meet our demand, to use our energy more efficiently, because energy efficiency starts with each of us.
Yusek Sharon, we're truly honored and grateful to have you with us on the show.
Many of the experts of the Bataan nuclear power plant, because it didn't push through, are now the experts in other countries. They've been pirated by other companies because we have such good scientists, researchers, engineers, and that is a talent that I think can bring alternative energy here. A new technology. We can invent our own or do our own research, and I think that's one of the big opportunities for the Philippines on these technologies.
Indeed, there needs to be policies and processes in place to help the country embrace and transition to these alternative sources of energy. It's also a great thing to learn that these are already being used in some parts of the country. Thank you once again to our guests, Mr. Felino Bernardo, Chief Operating Officer for Thermal Power Generation Group of Aboitiz Power Corporation, to the Department of Energy, Yusek Sharon Garin, and to our resident expert, DOE's Energy Utilization Management Bureau Director, Patrick Aquino. Thank you once again for your time and, of course, your valuable work in creating a better future for all. I'm your host, Antoinette Toss. Thank you again for joining us on this episode, and we'll see you again next time on Emerging Energy right here on CNN Philippines.